All right, Shabbos, good morning. A lot to do today. Today's daf is Gimel, Menachos Menachos, and we left off on Beis Amud Beis to be 4 lines up from the bottom. Olas Ha'of. So remember again, just to reorient ourselves a bit, we are really focusing now, hyper-focused on the Shita of Rabbi Shimon, specifically a stirai contradiction in the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. We had two different braisos. The brisa we quoted on the top of Beis Amud Beis quoted Rabbi Shimon as saying that all menachos, kol menachos shenikmetzu shelo lishman, right? Even a mincha which had a kamitza shelo lishman is not only going to be kosher, but ultimately again alu lebailim. The Chol say ultimately satisfy the obligation of the owners. And again, remember when Rabbi Shimon says that, when he says kol menachos literally means kol menachos, even minchas kinos and minchas chote, every single type of mincha. Second brisa then said that Rabbi Shimon, which seems to echo the sentiment of the Mishnah, that no, Rabbi Shimon holds that halacha l'maisa, a mincha that was offered up, the kamitza was done shelo lishman, ultimately could be a satisfactory mincha, could be a kasha mincha, but certainly does not satisfy the owner's obligation. And in a case of a minchas kenos, and in a case of minchas chote, it does not work. So we're trying now to figure out. So remember, one of the ways in which we resolved Rabbi Shimon's contradiction was as follows: what we termed as a machshava de lo minkara and a machshava de minkara. Or as Rabbi Shimon says as follows: that if you have a machshava de lo minkara, meaning if you have a shinui das, if you have a change in intent, but it's the kind of change in intent that Rashi says machshava de lo minkara im mechaze ve'im lav pasil. If it's not clear that the intent is clearly false, then halacha l'maisa, the carbon will be invalid. If it's clear that the machshava is false, then the carbon could be valid. What does that mean in practical terms? 2 words, or 3 words. Ma'aseh mochichin aleha, which is another way of saying that Rabbi Shimon holds that when it's clear, when through your actions it is clear the type of carbon you are performing, we care very little about what you're thinking. In other words, when your actions speak for themselves, we don't really care about what your machshavas are. That's Rabbi Shimon's logic. So if I'm offering up a particular type of mincha, and it's clear from the procedure what type of mincha it is, even if I have in mind for something else, we're not really focused on what you're thinking, but rather we'll define the effectiveness of your actions through what you are doing. So we'll say now, based on that, the Gemara raises a series of questions. So Olas Ha'of, we'll say now, I told you, it's very exciting. 4 lines up from the bottom. Olas Ha'of shemitza dama l'mayla, l'shem chatas. We'll listen to this. You have an Olas Ha'of, and you squeezed out the blood l'mala, above the red line on the mizbech chutas sikra, l'shem chatas ofra. We'll say when you did it for the sake of chatas ha'of. So the Gemara suggests tirtza, the carbon should be effective. Now we'll say it's a shinui das. You change the intention. But why should it be effective? Watch this. Because I will say the actions itself speak to the fact that what? This is an olas ha'of. How so? Because if it was a chatos, then lamata hava avile. Remember again, blood of a bird chatos is sprinkled where? Squeezed below the red line. This is being done above the red line. So it's clear from my actions that halacha l'maisa, this is going to be an olah. To which the Gemara says, I'm sorry, di chatas ofi lamata hava avile hazah. Top of Gimel, Omri dilma mitzvah de basra hazahu. Maybe what we're talking about over here, both say, is the squeezing out of the blood after the sprinkling. Da'amar mar mitzvah dama b'chamaka b'mizbeach kshera. Because Mar said they will say for the squeezing out of the post sprinkling squeezing. Post sprinkling squeezing could be done anywhere on the mizbeach. So we'll say the point over here the Gemara is making is it's not necessarily clear from your actions what it is that you're doing. Therefore, again, it will not be kosher. Chata sa'of shehiza dama lamata. We'll say a similar case. Let's say you have a chata sa'of. You sprinkled the blood below the chutas sikra, below the red line. L'shem olas ha'of. But you had in mind to do this for olas ha'of. So what's the halacha? Again, tirtza. The carbon should be good. Why? Because I will say the actions itself speak to the fact that this is a chatas ha'of. Why? Because ultimately, again, if it was an olas ha'of, you would be doing the blood applications above the chutas sikra, the red line of the mizbeach, and you'd be doing squeezing of the blood after the sprinkling. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Hachinami. In this case, in fact, Rabbi Shimon would agree that this particular bird offering is in fact kosher. And that's why, again, I will say, the Mizrach changes this. V'lo lefi she'in menachos domos l'zvachim kamar l'zvachim v'lo la'ofos. Because after all, again, Rabbi Shimon was saying that menachos are not comparable to animal sacrifices, but they would be comparable ultimately to bird offerings. So therefore, we'll say in this case it actually works. Also, what's coming out now, and this is really, as I mentioned yesterday, because it's dramatic on a hashkafic level as well. What Rabbi Shimon is saying is essentially, when there is a conflict between what you are thinking and what you are doing, we go after what? We go after what you're doing. We go after your actions. What we call ma'aseh mochichin aleh, which I both say, by the way, if you'll notice, is a dramatic departure from almost everything. Meaning, I don't want to brag, but we're pretty proficient, like in karbanos these days. I think we're holding, Baruch Hashem, 120 blot in zvachim. And if like there's one thing that came up over and over again in karbanos, is that kavanos and machshavos absolutely matter. Absolutely matter. Rabbi Shimon is advancing this new ideology that is really only applicable by menachos, and as we see, maybe by ophos as well, which is when it is inexplicably clear, right? Or I should say, when it is crystal clear that what you're doing through your actions, and your actions leave absolutely no doubt or no ambiguity as to the type of carbon that you are offering, then erroneous das cannot compromise the carbon. That's Rabbi Shimon's idea. And I will say, now as we saw, that only applies really to menachos. It doesn't apply to other karbanos. Why? Because by other karbanos, essentially the processes look the same. Shchita is shchita. Kabbalah is kabbalah. Holacha is holacha. Even zrika. Granted, you can have zrika in different places, but the act of zrika is the same. It's only by menachos, because we haven't gotten into this yet, but each mincha is prepared in a dramatically different way. To which Rabbi Shimon says, Ma'aseh mochichan aleh. So to continue on this a little bit. Kachei kadashim sheshachtem etzaf Moshem kachim kalim. So let's say I have the following case. Kachei kadashim that were shechted in the north, for the sake of kachim kalim. Mirtzu, its carbon should be good. Why? Ma'asin mochichan aleh in the kachei kadashim ninu. Because we'll say the actions themselves should show that the karbanos are kachei kadashim. Why? Di kachim kalim b'daron halav. Because we'll say kachim kalim are offered in the south, not in the north. To which the Gemara says, Eimar dam rachmana af bidaram. So we'll say the Torah says they could even be offered in the south. Bidaram v'lo b'tzafon mi amar. Do we say that they could only be offered in the south and not in the north? Disnan shchitasan b'chom bakum ba'azara. Because we'll say, after all, we learned that they could be shechted anywhere in the Azara. So again, what do you see from here? You see from here that in the case of animal sacrifices, you can't say ma'aseha mochichin aleha. You can't say that from the actions you have absolute clarity what type of carbon it is. Next case, kachim kalim sheshachtan bedaram. We'll say kachim kalim that were shechted in the south of the Azaras, of the courtyard. L'shem kachei kadashim, for the sake of kachei kadashim. So we'll say wrong, erroneous intent. What's the halacha? Lirtzu, they should work. Why? Because ma'aseh mochichin aleim the kachim kalim ninu. Because it will say the actions, meaning the processes itself, the process itself should indicate that in fact it's kachim kalim. Why? Di kachei kadashim, because it will say if it was kachei kadashim, b'tzafon hava avilu, then you'll be shechting it in the north, but you're not shechting it in the south. That's good that it's kachei kalim. Amri kachei kadashim ninu. So I'm sorry. So di kachei kadashim b'tzafon hava avilu. Amri, you could say kachei kadashim ninu. To which the Gemara says, well, not necessarily. The onlooker could simply say that no, really it's kachei kadashim, but the slaughterer or the offerer is being over on the halacha, and instead of offering it up in the north, he's offering it up in the south. So we'll say now this is actually a very dramatic departure, because now what we're saying is maybe someone who sees you doing this will just assume you're doing something wrong. Well, if that's the case, ihachi machavos l'shem marcheshes nami. If that's the case, says the Gemara, so if I offer up, I'm offering up a minchas machvos. So I'll say, for lack of a better term, like a machvos is like a, I guess we go like deep dish mincha, right? Deep dish mincha, right? It actually sounds good, right? Deep dish mincha, and I will say, and what happens? I offered up a shem marcheshes. Marcheshes is like a griddle mincha, right? Not brittle, griddle, like fried. So I'm offering up deep dish mincha. Right, and then what happens? But as I'm doing it, I have in mind ultimately again for marcheshes. So we'll say, so under normal, so up until now, what have we been saying? What will be the status of that particular mincha? What will be the status? Be kosher, why? Ma'aseh mochichana. Because it will say, you could tell from the mode of preparation that it is a machvas and not a marcheshes, because they're prepared two different ways. But why don't we say, if that's the case, that you're going to say now that people could say that the offer is just mistaken, Haidika comes say the marcheshes, that he's doing the kmitza for marcheshes, Amri, Hai b'marcheshes nadar. Say that in fact he had in mind to bring, he was no da marcheshes, v'had the ma'isel b'machvas, the marcheshesi, and ultimately, again, the fact that he's going ahead and bringing in a machvos, right? Sorry, ultimately, again, we'll say we could say that he's mistaken. In other words, up until now, you've been saying that maaseh mochichin, but maybe in fact say that that's what she has kavanah for, is the actual carbon he wants to bring, but his performance is flawed. Hasam nami b'marcheshes nadar, to which the Gemara says, Hassam, in the case by Mincha, Ki Nami b'Marcheshes Nadar, she will say, according to Rabbi Shimon, here's the incredible novelty. When it comes to a Karban Mincha, even if for argument's sake, your neder was to bring a Marcheshes, Ki Maisli b'Machvas, Machvas Havya. Both say, now it gets even more dramatic. In Rabbi Shimon's worldview, I will say, if you go ahead, let's say this isn't the extreme case, I made a neder to bring a Minchas Marcheshes. That was my neder, bring a Minchas Marcheshes. Deep dish mincha. I'm sorry, fried mincha. And then what happens? Ki maisle b'machvos. Then Rabbi say, I end up bringing a deep dish mincha. So what's the status here? Machvos havya. Rabbi say, it is a valid minchas machvos. Rabbi say, you understand why we just took a dramatic shift here? Because up until now, what have we been dealing with? We've been dealing with where a person had in mind to bring a particular mincha, but then at the time of the performance of the kmitza, they have the wrong intent, but then in fact end up bringing the right type of carbon that they originally had in mind for. This case is even more dramatic, where I had in mind for A, meaning not I had in mind, I made a neder to bring A. I had in mind for A. Just the actual type that I brought was B. So even then the Gemara is suggesting that the mincha is a valid mincha. Because also what you begin to see by Menachos is, we just look at what you bring. We look at what you bring because what you bring speaks volumes. What you bring attests to the type of carbon it is. Kidisnan. Ha'omer harei alai b'machvos. We'll say ultimately again, if a person says, I hereby commit myself to bringing a deep dish mincha, v'hevi b'marcheshes, and I bring a fried one instead, or b'marcheshes, or I take a neder to bring a marcheshes, v'hevi b'machvos, and I bring a deep dish mincha, mashehevi. Ultimately, again, what you brought is brought, i.e., the mincha is valid. However, the day nidro lo yatsa. And I was saying, obviously, this is the caveat. Even according to Rabbi Shimon, you're not yotze, you're neder. Now, that's obvious, because at the end of the day, you vowed to bring A, but you brought B. But yet, despite that, the incredible novelty, I will say, is what? Is that halacha lemaisa, the mincha itself, is still a bona fide mincha. I b'dilma amar zu lahavi b'machvas, ve'ev marcheshes. We'll say, maybe he said, I hereby pledge upon myself to bring this flour. So we'll say, now we're changing stuff up. It just gets more exciting. So we'll say, in this case over here, what I'm doing is I'm dedicating actual specific flour. Zu lahavi b'machvas. I hereby pledge to bring this flour as a carbon minchas machvas. Ve'ev marcheshes, but I end up bringing it as a marcheshes. Kidisnan. Zu lahavi b'machvas. I go ahead and I vow to bring this flour b'kar machvas. Ve'hevi b'marcheshes, but I bring it as a fried carbon instead. Or b'marcheshes ve'hevi machvas. And I remember the difference in this case over here is that halacha l'maisa, I'm actually pledging particular flours. I'm identifying specific flour to bring. What's the halacha? Harei zo psula. Harei zo psula. Ultimately, again, such a carbon is possible. To which the Gemara says, you're right. L'Rabbanan hachinami. According to the Rabbanan, this would be true. L'Rabbi Shimon, Kevan dav Rabbi Shimon, af yedei nidro yatsa. So also according to Rabbi Shimon holds also that in a general case, where you went ahead and you pledged a particular type of mincha, then had the wrong das, but ultimately ended up bringing the correct mincha, Rabbi Shimon even holds that your yotze, your neder. Not only is the carbon itself good, Rabbi Shimon actually holds that you fulfilled your neder, alma kviusa demana v'lo klumu. Therefore, I will say Rabbi Shimon in general holds that when you go ahead and you're koveya al peh, when you identify a particular flour to be brought to the mincha, Rabbi Shimon ultimately just says that's more like identifying the utensil, velo klumhu. Velo klumhu. It doesn't really mean anything. Velo shna amar zu, velo shna amar alai. Rabbi will say in Rabbi Shimon's worldview, there is really no difference if you go ahead and you say, I'm bringing this flour, or if you go ahead and you say, I take upon myself this obligation. Doesn't make any difference. So we'll say, so what's coming out, I just want to point out, according to Rabbi Shimon, is as follows. So Rabbi Shimon Shit Rabbi say so far is the most intense when it comes to Menachos, because Rabbi Shimon holds simply ma'aseha mochichin aleha. That at the end of the day, we're not really worried about what your kavanas are. We're simply focusing on what? On what you do, because from your actions, from the mincha you bring, we understand, meaning the type of mincha is self-evident from the mincha process in which you engage. Therefore, Rabbi Shimon says we don't really care about your kavanas. We just look at the type of mincha you bring. The one case Rabbi Shimon will agree with Rabbi Osai is where your neder is to bring A, but you end up bringing B. Even Rabbi Shimon will agree that in that case, what's the halacha? Is the mincha good? Yes, but it does not count towards your obligation. That's the one distinction. So we'll say again, if I pledge A and have in mind for B, but actually end up bringing A, Rabbi Shimon says, mincha's good, fulfill my obligation. If I pledged A and end up bringing B, which we'll say it's intuitive. If I pledged A and end up bringing B, even Rabbi Shimon will agree. Again, halacha lemaisa, the mincha, so a fine mincha, the covenant is a bona fide mincha, but it does not discharge my obligation. Good, weiter. So we'll say, so again, going through Rabbi Shimon's model of ma'aseh mochichin aleha, that the actions ultimately again could testify to the nature of the offering. So I ask the following case. Good morning, Mr. Schoenfeld. My first good morning to you in Menachos. It's good. So Elamiata. So we'll say, here we go. So therefore, using this logic, if I shecht an ola for the sake of a chatos, right, l'shem chatos, tirtzeh, it should work. Why? Because we'll say it's discernible that my mindset is flawed and the action stands on its own. Why? Dehai zocher, v'hai nekiva. Because we'll say an ola comes from a male animal and a chatos comes from a female animal. So we'll say, so if I went ahead and pledged an ola, right, and I shechted it l'shem chatos, it's clear that my mindset is flawed, right, because it's wrong animal. Wrong animal. So the Gemara says, "Kevan de ikasir nazir de zacherhu lo yedia." We will say it's not true. There is a case of a chatas that's also a male animal. What's that? That's the seir. That's the chatas of the nasir. Amar l'shem chatas yachid ma'ikli. Okay, so let's say I said I'm bringing this animal l'shem chatas yachid. So we'll say, so I'm making it explicitly clear that what? That is, I'm not the nasi, and ultimately, again, it's not my chatas nasi. So if I say, I hereby pledge this animal, I hereby take upon myself to bring a chatas yachid, and then I go ahead and during the process I have in mind for ola, so the halacha is the carbon should be good. Why? Because I'm bringing a male animal, which is clearly fit for ola, not fit for chatas, and therefore it should be good. To which the Gemara says, v'su, furthermore, chatos yachid sheshachta l'shem ola, tirtzeh. We'll say if you have a chatas yochid that was shechted for the sake of an ola, it should also be good. Why? The chatas nekeva va'ola zachar. We'll say same thing, because the chatas is a female animal, ola is a male animal, and therefore ma'aseha mochichin aleha. My actions speak to what it is that I'm doing. To which the Gemara says no, mechasya ba'alya. So we'll say it's different because an animal very often the tail covers the male and female reproductive organs. Therefore, I will say again, do you have a picture of this? There's a mamish, a picture. Okay, good. Fat-tailed sheep, good. Amazing. Right, so now the Gemara says, in other words, it's not a discernible difference. Why? Because the fat tail of the sheep, it's called a fat-tailed sheep. Is that what it is? Fat-tailed sheep. Oh yes, good. Fat-tailed sheep, good. Right? You even have it in color over there. Ramish. What's happening out? Yeah. So the idea is, so on a fat-tailed sheep, so the idea is you can't tell the difference between male and female. To which the Gemara says, that's fine when you brought the sheep, because the sheep has a tail. I see seira ma'ikalamimar, but if you bring a goat to Bosai, a goat doesn't have a tail. So what is there to say? So Ella bein schalman akevos lav adat tayu di'inshi. I'll say, but the idea is in general, people aren't attentive to the gender of animals. So because you're not attentive, therefore what you can't say, ma'aseh mochichin aleh. So both say the idea over here is, when do we say ma'aseh mochichin aleh? When the details jump out at you, when they're clear, objectively clear. What about the fact Pesach sheshachta l'shem asham lirtzu? If you shech the Pesach, Rabbi say for the sake of an asham, it should work. Why? The high nurse. If I'm shechting a Pesach, but I have in mind that it should be for an asham, I have kavanah for an asham. Rabbi say the halach is the carbon should still be valid. Why? The high ben shana, because a Pesach could only be offered up when it's 1 year old. The high ben shtaim, and Rabbi say an asham has to be from a 2-year-old animal. To which the Gemara says, 1 second, kevan di gasham nazir v'asham mitzora lo pasika. So we'll say, since there's the asham nazir and asham mitzora, which Rabbi say what? Which Rabbi say could even be offered up from younger animals. Therefore, again, it's not clear that my intention is wrong. Amr l'shum asham gzelos l'shum asham me'ilos ma'ikal meimar. So what happens if he has in mind, Rabbi say, that he's going to do it l'shum asham gzelos and asham me'ilos? So what is there to say? V'su asham gzelos v'asham me'ilos. I will say furthermore again, if you have an asham gzelos and an asham me'ilos that you shechted for the sake of a carbon pesach, lirtzu, they should work. Why? The Pesach ben shana, because carbon pesach is only offered up at 1 year old. V'hani ben shtei shanim, and I will say these animals are offered up at 2 years old. So I will say there's a clear discernible difference in the animals. Ella ben shana lebein shtei shanim lav adat taihu deinshi. So we'll say, but rather again, when it comes to an animal that is 1 year or an animal that is 2 years, people are unable to discern those differences. Di'ika ben shana demaisi ki ben shtayim, v'ika ben shtayim demechse ki ben shana. Because I will say there are 1-year-old animals that look like 2-year-old animals, and there are 2-year-old animals that look like 1-year-old animals. Some animals age gracefully, and some do not. But the idea is it's not a discernible difference. I will say Rabbi Shimon only holds his particular shita when it's what we call ma'aseh mochichin aleha, objectively clear set of facts. Seir sheshachto l'shem asham lirtzi. We'll say if you have a goat, a seir that was shechted for the sake of an asham, it should work. Why? Dahai tzemer v'hai soyer. Because we'll say ultimately again the goat has wool, and the sheep has wool, and ultimately again the goat has hair. The distinction. So it says the idea of it is it's clear that you're offering up the soyer. Amri dichra uchmu. People will say, I will say literally again, it's a black animal, dichra uchmu, which means ultimately again it looks like an animal which has been shorn. Okay. Haircut, right. Good morning. Thank you. Hey, good morning. So the Gemara says as follows: Egalupar sheshacht al shum Pesach. We'll say, what about the next case? So we'll say again, it's all the same things that we're doing over here. We're just ultimately bringing these cases. So remember again, I will say, what Rabbi Shimon was saying was my concept of ma'aseh mochichin aleha is only a concept that works by menachos and doesn't work by zvachim. The Gemara is just trying to show the principle should be able to work by zvachim as well, but has so far been unsuccessful in doing that. Ola upar, egal upar, sheshachtan l'shem pesach. We'll say if you shecht a calf or a cow for the sake of carbon pesach, right? L'shem pesach va'asham lirtzu, right? For a pesach or for an asham, the carbon should work. Why, Rabbi say? Because at the end of the day, you can't bring these animals as a carbon pesach. The egel upar pesach va'asham leka, because we'll say ultimately again you can't bring an egel as a carbon pesach or as an asham. Einachinami. You're right. We'll say actually we found the case. If you go ahead, I will say, and you are offering up, let's say an egel. I'm offering up a calf as a carbon chatas. I'm bringing a chatas, I'm bringing a calf as a chatas. And when I'm doing the avoda, right, when I'm doing it, I have in mind that it should be for what? For carbon pesach. We both say that'll actually be a case where halacha l'maisa, the carbon will still be valid as a chatas. Why? Because you cannot bring an egel as a pesach. It is impossible. It's not shaykh. It's ma'aseh mochichin aleh. The actions are clear that it is not a carbon pesach. To which the Gemara says, "Einachinami." Okay, you got it. You now found the case like this by zvachim. Amud beis Rabbi saying umay zvachim. So what does it mean when we said before that halacha l'maisa, Rabbi Shimon's concept of maaseh mochichin aleha doesn't apply to karbanos rov zvachim. It means by most cases of karbanos. So by the way, in this case, most doesn't just mean most. What does most mean? Most means all except one. Right? Almost in every single case, with one exception, we don't say ma'aseh mochichan alaha by zvachim, but except for this one case, we'll say ultimately of the egel offered up for the sake of Korban Pesach. Beautiful. Rava, I will say now, we're back again to trying to reconcile the two different brisos of Rabbi Shimon. Rava says as follows. Rava Amar, lo kasha. No contradiction in the positions of Rabbi Shimon. How so? Kan bekometz mincha l'shum mincha, kan bekometz mincha l'shum zevach. So I will say one case of Rabbi Shimon is talking about where you went ahead and you did the kmitza of mincha, but you did it for the wrong type of mincha. And one is talking about a case of ultimately again where you do kmitza of the mincha for the sake of a korban, of an animal korban, a zevach. Mincha l'shum mincha. If you do the kmitza of the mincha, but you have in mind for a different type of mincha, so we'll say the halacha is that it's kosher. Why? V'zos toras hamincha. Because the Torah says this is the law of the mincha, Torah achas l'chol ha-menachos. I will say there is one set of laws for all menachos. For all menachos. Therefore, I will say, according to Rabbi Shimon, if I did the kmitza, I'm offering up a machvos, and I did the kmitza l'shem marcheshes, Rabbi Shimon says such a mincha will still be valid. Zos Toras ha-mincha, all menachos are grouped together. However, mincha l'shum zevach, but I will say if I did the kmitza, when I did the kmitza, I had in mind the kmitza should be done for a korban, even though again I will say that is illogical. Ultimately, again, v'zos Toras ha-mincha v'zevach lo ksiv. It does not say this is the Torah for a mincha and a zevach and an animal offering. Therefore, we'll say Rabbi Shimon will say, if when doing the kmitza, I have in mind for the wrong type of korban mincha, the korban is valid and I discharge my obligation. But if I do the kmitza and I have in mind for an animal offering, we'll say that invalidates the mincha. So we'll say, but one second, but that's not what Rabbi Shimon said. Rabbi Shimon says that ultimately, again, the reason why the mincha is still kosher is because the actions, right, your actions ultimately attest to the type of korban you are offering. To which the Gemara says, this is what it means to say. Even though again Rabbi say this is a case of where the machshava is not obviously invalid, viti pasal, and it should ultimately be pasal. V'zos toras hamincha, Torah achas l'chol hamenachos. Ultimately, again, the Torah says, zos toras hamincha, this is the law of the mincha, one law for all menachos, which Rabbi teaches you, Rabbi Shimon says, that you have a little bit of latitude within the world of menachos itself. So if you're offering up mincha A, but you have in mind for mincha B, ultimately, again, your korban will still be kosher. Umay aval b'zvachim eino kain. And what does it mean when the Brisa said, when Rabbi Shimon said that by zvachim it's not like this? Afal gav de shchita achas lekulan. Even though again Rabbi says shchita looks the same by all korbanos. V'zos toras hamincha v'zavach lo ksiv. The Torah ultimately again does not say zos toras hamincha v'zavach, and therefore again regular animal korbanos do not have this same amount of leeway as menachos have. So we'll say, so this is Rava's resolution. Rava's resolution is Rabbi Shimon holds that there is a special din by menachos. That special din and that leeway is generated by the pasuk zos toras hamincha, which Rabbi say does what? Groups all menachos together, and essentially says that when doing kmitza, even if you have in mind for the wrong type of mincha, nevertheless the halacha is that what? You're still yotzei. You're still yotzei. That is a din that does not, however, again, if you were to, when doing kmitza, to have in mind for an animal offering, that would invalidate the korban mincha. Elameata, but using that logic, chatos chelev, sheshachtu l'shem chatos dam. So we'll say, if you're bringing, let's say a person has to bring a chatos because he ate chelev. And what happens? When offering it up, I have in mind that should be a chatos for the sake of consuming blood, for the transgression of consuming blood. Or l'shum chatos avodas kochavim, or a chatos for the sake for idolatry, or because I worshipped idolatry, or l'shum chatos nazir, or the chatos that a nazir brings, l'shum chatos mitzora, or the chatos that a mitzora brings, tehei kashera v'tirtza. So I will say now what the Gemara is saying based on this. So now what you're telling me is, if when offering up a mincha, I do the kmitza with intention for the wrong type of mincha, what's the halacha? What's the halacha? It's good. Why? Because those Toras HaMincha, the pasuk teaches me that all menachos are in the same camp. If that's the case, the Gemara answers something very interesting. If I'm offering up a chatas, now I happen to be bringing my chatas because I ate chelev, I ate forbidden fat. And when bringing that carbon, I have in mind for a different type of chatos. The Gemara posits that halacha l'maisa should still be yotze. Why? Because what's listening to is the Amar Rachmana v'zos Torah sachatos. Torah achos the chol chatos. Because the pasuk says zos Torah sachatos, which means what? This one halacha for chatos. In other words, the Torah is grouping together all chatos. Just like we said, you group together all menachos, and therefore, if I end up doing kamitza for the wrong type of carbon, I'm still yotze. Well, I don't say the same thing about chatos also. I have to bring a chatos for eating chaylev, but if I have in mind for the wrong chatos, halacha l'maisa, the carbon should still be good. To which the Gemara said, Rabbi Shimon Hachinami. You're right. Rabbi Shimon actually would agree with this. He would agree with this logic. L'Rabbanan ha'amarava chatos chaylev sheshachta l'shem chatos dam l'shum chatos avadas kochavim kshera. So we'll say, according to Rabbi Shimon, you're absolutely right that the pasuk that says Torah achas l'chol chatos would in fact be given the same status as zos Torah hamincha. That enoch inami, if you're bringing a chatos, but you have in mind for the wrong type of chatos, you are absolutely still yotze your chatos. The problem comes according to the Rabbanan. Because according to the Rabbanan, they hold the Rava. What does Rava say? Chatos chelev. If I have to bring a chatos because I ate chelev, sheshachtu l'shem chatos dam, and I shechted it for the sake of a chatos to be brought for eating blood, or l'shum chatos avodas kochavim, or the chatos for worshiping idolatry. So we'll say in those cases, kshera. My chatos will still be kosher. However, l'shem chatos nazir, l'shem chatos mitzora psula. But if I had in mind to shecht it for the sake of the chatos nazir, the chatos mitzora, what is the halacha? The carbon is pasul. Why? Dahani olos bahadayuninu. Oh, because Rabbi say the chatas nazir and the chatas mitzora, bless you, don't just come by themselves, but rather they are accompanied by olos. Because they are accompanied by olos, they don't look the same as the other chatos, and because they don't look the same as other chatos, if I have in mind for them, that das can in fact invalidate the carbon I am bringing. Beautiful. Rav Acha B'Rava masni le'lekulu leposla. Ravacha actually says that halacha l'maisa, anytime you bring a carbon chatas, not for the sake of that intended chatas, what is the halacha? The halacha is the chatas is psula. Why? V'shachat osa lechatas l'shem osa chatas. Because it was like gzeres hakasav, pasuk says you shall shecht it for a chatas, which tells me what? Chatas has to have specific kind of a kavanah for that type of chatas. And I will say, if you remember again, going all the way back, this is the first Mishnah in Meseches Zvachim, that indeed we paskin this way. Every carbon of shechted shalo l'shma. What's the halacha? First Mishnah in Zvachim. What's the halacha? It's kosher ella shalo ol lebailin. Right? It doesn't work to satisfy the owner's obligation, with one exception, which is chatas. Chatas that is shechted shalo l'shma is in fact invalid, because I will say we paskin like this idea. Chatas is unique for shachat osa. It has to be shechted for that particular purpose and other purpose. Good. We'll say Ravashi. We'll say still another resolution. We are fixated on Rabbi Shimon. The world, everyone is fixated on Rabbi Shimon, because we can't wrap our head around the fact that there are two diametrically opposed brisos that lead to give us two conflicting views of Rabbi Shimon's opinion. First one telling me that a mincha offered up shol l'shma is going to be okay, or I should say the shem mincha acheres is going to be okay at alu l'bailin. Second one that says it's not okay, or I should say the mincha is okay, but it's not alu l'bailin. Ravashi, another resolution. Ravashi Amar Lo Kasha. I will say we actually mentioned this in yesterday's daf. Kan bekometz machvos l'shum archeshes. Kan bekometz minchas machvos l'shum minchas marcheshes. So we'll say, interestingly enough, Ravashi wants to suggest that everything is in terms of the verbiage you use. Rabbi Shimon says that if you offer up a machvos l'shem marcheshes, this is the lashon. I'm offering up a machvos. That's what I'm bringing, carbon machvos. But I say l'shum marcheshes. So what Rabbi Shimon says, in that case, the carbon will still be valid, and ultimately the mincha will still be valid, and will satisfy the obligation of the owner. On the other hand, if I say minchas machvos l'shum minchas marcheshes, it will be invalid. What's the distinction? Machvos l'shum marcheshes b'manach kachoshev. So we'll say if he says machvos l'shum marcheshes, he's referring to the type of utensil to be used. And umachshava b'mana lo pasla. And I will say a machshava about the type of utensil to be used ultimately again does not invalidate the carbon. Which I will say is another essential way of saying that when a person says I'm bringing a machvas, and then the kavanah is l'shem marcheshes, I will say the statement of l'shem marcheshes is a meaningless statement. Because it is a meaningless statement, it does not negatively impact the mincha. On the flip side, minchas machvas l'shum minchas marcheshes b'mincha de pasla b'machshava kamachashev. We'll say ultimately again, but if I'm bringing a minchas marcheshes, minchas machvas, and I articulate, I'm bringing it l'shum minchas marcheshes, that is a meaningful statement, and that in fact can what? That in fact could undermine the effectiveness of the carbon mincha. But 1 second I will say, but that's not what the Brisa said. The Brisa said that Rabbi Shimon holds the mincha is good. Why? Because because the actions speak louder than the intentions, and from the actions I see exactly what type of carbon he has in mind to bring. To which the Gemara says, this is what it means to say. We'll say, even though ultimately, again, actually changes it over here in Yud Beis. If you look in the Shita Mikubeses, he changes the Girsa. The machshava de lo minkari v'tipasa. Ultimately, again, even though again, we'll say this is a case of where it is not clear that the machshava is false, and therefore, again, the carbon should be pasul. His intention is regarding the kli, and the intention regarding the kli does not undermine the carbon. And I will say, so therefore, what does the Brisa mean when it says that this is not true by karbanos? Even though what? There's one shchita for all types of karbanos, and one zrika for all types of karbanos. Kabbalah achos lekulan, one type of kabbalah for all karbanos. Bezvicha de pasla be machshava kamachashev. Ultimately, again, I will say, when it comes ultimately to karbanos, bezvicha de pasli lay. Sorry, I just lost the place here. Sorry, I forgot the shchita achas lekulan, zvicha achas lekulan, kabbalah achas lekulan. I'm sorry. Bezvicha de pasli machshava kamachashev. Ultimately, again, so we'll say erroneous mindset actually has the ability to undermine the effectiveness of the carbon. Amrli Rabachabri Ravashi Charva Mishum Belula Amai Amar Reb Shimon. We'll say, what about the case of a Chariva L'Shum Belula? If you look at Rashi, it's the last two lines of the short lines in Rashi. Chariva L'Shem Belula Diktani Ba'alu. So we'll say Diktani De'alu. If he offers up a minchas chareba, which is a type of mincha, L'Shum Belula, and I will say very simply, a Chariva is a dry mincha. Belula ultimately again is a mincha that is mixed with liquid, with oil. So ultimately again, Rabbi Shimon says that it works. Why is that? Because Amrlei l'shum bila ba'alma. Look at Rashi. Amai Amr Shimon. Kolomar my taima alu havade machshava dahaleka hachamana. L'shem bila ba'alma. Rashi says kevan delo idker behedja minchas chareva l'shem minchas belula. Divrei ruach ba'alma. So Yabba says, since he did not explicitly say, ultimately again I'm offering up a minchas chareva l'shem minchas belula, therefore his statement is irrelevant. Kiman damar any komes l'shem davar acher. So it says the Gemara, if that's the case, ihachi l'shum shlamim nami l'shum shlamim ba'alma. We'll say, if that's the case, then in the following situation, now look at Rashi for just a moment. Ihachi b'zvachim, you see that Rashi? Demod Rabbi Shimon delo alis. We'll say in the case of karbanos, where let's say Rabbi Shimon agrees that halach l'maisa, if you have in mind, if you express kavana for the wrong type of carbon, it doesn't work. Why is that? Why don't you say that if he's offering up a chatos and he says l'shem shlamim, it should work as well? Because what does l'shem shlamim mean? Maybe l'shem shlamim doesn't mean for the sake of a carbon shlamim, but rather what does it mean? So it says, look at Rashi, Yachi b'zvachim, the modeh Reb Shimon delo alu, amai modeh ki shachat ola l'shem shlamim. Why is it invalid if he shechts an ola l'shem shlamim? Tala l'shem chova, it should work. You know why? Dachi kamar chova zu ani shochit l'shem la'asos shalom bein koni lebeini. I'm offering this up, or we'll say maybe when he says a shlamim, what does he mean as a shlamim? I'm offering this up in order to make shalom between myself and my creator. To which the Gemara says, I'll tell you why it doesn't work. Hachi hashta hasam zevach gufe ikri shlamim. So we'll say there, a carbon itself is called a shlamim. Dichsiv hamakrives dama shlamim hazorekes dama shlamim. We'll say the pasuk explicitly calls a carbon a shlamim. So therefore, when he has in mind for shlamim, shlamim means what? Shlamim means a type of carbon. However, hacha, when it comes to mincha gufei meikri belula, is a mincha ever called belula? No. V'chol mincha belula b'shemen ksiv. Ultimately, the pasuk says a mincha that is belula b'shemen. Belula b'shemen mixed with oil is what is called ikri. Belula stama lo ikri. Ultimately, in Yemen, it is not called stam belula. So we'll just finish up this last piece. Kulu kiravalo amri. So we'll say all of these. So now we've just expressed a number of different approaches in resolving the stira in Rabbi Shimon. So we'll say the other opinions don't hold like Rabbah. Why? The other Rabbah, the machshava de minkara pasal rachmana. Because ultimately, you're going to both say they hold just the opposite. That it is in a case of machshava de minkara, in a case where it is clear that your machshava is flawed, that's dafka the case where Chazal, where the Torah passes the mincha. Kirava lo amri. So ultimately, again, the other opinions don't pass like Rava. Why? V'zos Toras la mashmalu. They don't subscribe to the drasha of Zos Toras. Kirav Ashi lo amri. The other opinions do not subscribe to the shita of Rav Ashi. Why? Mushum kushya Rav Acha b'reid Rava. Ultimately, again, because of the contradiction as posed by Rav Acha b'reid Rava. So we'll say we stop over here for today. Again, ending off with so far 3 different resolutions of the stira in Rabbi Shimon, and now understanding why each of the opinions does not subscribe to the other. We're not finished with Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon continues in Meretz Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach. For the next week is going to be Adam Benek.